So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome, everybody, to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We have a very special episode for you today, as we are here to recap the entire first season of House of the Dragon and give out our season-long awards for the most important aspects of the show. I am here with my House of the Dragon Pinot Noir, and I am lucky enough to be joined by the entire crew today. We've got Ali G in the house. We have Kate. We have Travis. We've got Brad. And we have Kelsey Lee D all back. And I cannot wait to relive this entire season with you guys. Now, I know I don't need to say this. Obviously, we are recapping the entire season of the show. So, of course, there will be spoilers throughout the entire episode. If you missed anything, you need to rewatch an episode. Go ahead and rewatch some of our episodes as well. We have those on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, all that, and relive all the action with us as well. But I think it's time to just get this underway. We have a lot to talk about, and we're going to start with the most valuable player, the MVP of season one. Now, I'll start with you, Kate, because you're always the MVP. Who was your MVP for season one of House of the Dragon?
I think mine's pretty obvious. You guys will probably have the same one, but I chose Rhaenyra just because she's the main character and I love her. I think she's a total badass and she's really smart. She knows how to play the game. She's not ending on such a great note here, but I think she's coming back strong in season 2.
I'm surprised you picked Rhaenyra. I thought you were going to go with her boy Daemon.
I love Daemon, but I love a strong woman. Rhaenyra, you go, girl.
Do you have Daemon, Kelsey? Is that who your MVP is?
I do have Daemon, and then as a follow-up to that, I have young Rhaenyra as my runner-up MVP.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, I have Daemon. It's so funny because obviously with House of the Dragon, just so much happens. I was really trying to think about all of the categories that we're going over today and how much happened in just 10 episodes. And you forget, like, Daemon, we all fucking hated Daemon, like, right away. And he just makes such, well, Ali, I don't know what to say for you, but I hated Daemon at the first. You think about his Morbius character and his small beady eyes, as Noah likes to remind us every episode. But he just made a complete 180 for me. I love his character. I love the gray characters that Game of Thrones has, and I think he's a perfect representation of that. So he's my MVP. Was it number one in our
hearts? There you go. Ali G, how about you?
He had another number. Number 2. Number 2 in House of the Dragon, number 1 in our hearts. There we go.
He's number 69 in my heart.
Yeah.
Already starting, huh? Already starting.
So yeah, honestly, like, I know I say this every time, but I just struggle so hard with MVP and LVP because I just like feel so strongly about things all the time. So I'm like, oh, who do I love versus who like truly played the game the best, was the smartest. Like, that's very hard for me to compartmentalize. So I'll just tell you both. Number 1, I'm very surprised at myself because I hated young Rhaenyra, hated her, but she absolutely ended up being my MVP overall. Like, and honestly, it was really in the finale when she did the whole, like, should I start a war because I'm mad energy? Like, she just like truly was doing everything for the good of the realm. And even being like, if I don't become queen, like, I told my father I'd protect the realm. Like, that's what this whole thing is about. I was just like, yo, respect. Also honorable mention was Rhaenys. She was a bad bitch. But in terms of like who played the game the most, I know all season I said I hated Otto Hightower so much, but I would say he put himself in the best spot in the end. Like, truly hate that dude. I did think it was kind of like, there wasn't a lot of like scheming, which I would have liked. But also another honorable mention, like Aemond, even though he kind of fucked up there in the end a lot, like he made a lot of money moves. Like even when he was a kid, he like took that dragon and is always like seems schemy, which I just like from Game of Thrones. Anyway, there's my very long-winded answer. Rhaenyra was my MVP.
Love it.
Schemy.
I'll jump in. I'll say my MVP is definitely going to be Vhagar. I went back and forth. Vhagar, without Vhagar, we don't have a show. I mean, the Greens would have no shot in this entire war if they didn't have Vhagar on their side. So I guess Vhagar, and by extension, Aemon, I have to include him since he's the one who won him over. But the war is over before it even starts. It's already 13-4. It'd be 13-3, and they wouldn't have the biggest dragon in the entire realm. So just for the purpose of having the show and carrying the whole war in season 2, I'll say Vhagar.
She's like a senile old lady, though. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's not even listening to Aemon. Like, I don't know.
Strong girl.
Yeah, that's true.
Bitch, but like.
Now, Brad, this is the part where you shock us all with some very obscure character that no one would ever think of as your MVP. Tell us, Brad, tell us why Larys Strong is your MVP.
Oh, damn, I forgot about him. Can I change it? No,
He's like, my MVP is Queen Alicent's feet.
My boy George R. Martin, because we all know how much I stan him.
Me too, Brad.
And just remind everybody, you know, everyone wants to get on him about not finishing the books, but had this guy not fleshed out this world this much and already thought this stuff through and the histories through, this show would have taken, like, how long would it take to write a show like this complex with all the time jumps? Like, they would have spent like 10 years writing this show. But instead, like, they had it for us within like, what, 5 years of Fire and Blood coming out. So George R. Martin, thinking this through from the very start. You take all the time you need, George. You keep giving us content like this, take all the time you need.
I think I saw that he's like 70 or 80% through.
Yeah, full of shit.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys. Oh.
He's been working on this book since 2011. Like, he's 75% done.
And other stuff.
And other stuff. I also saw a picture of him on Halloween. And he literally was wearing the same exact outfit that he always wears, but the shirt was like a little bit different shade of green. And he said he was Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It's like, bro, you are dressed literally as yourself. Your shirt just happens to be green.
No, you're just so mad that he got dressed. I was like, get back in the house and write.
Yes. Why are you celebrating Halloween? Celebrate by writing on your little typewriter, George. Get back at it. Sit down.
Hey, he's a Jets fan who's been waiting for a decent year from his team for a long time. Let him watch those games, y'all.
Well, for me, I have a more of a jokey one and more of a serious one. I think my jokey one is that the MVP is Sir Laenor Velaryon. And the reason I say it is because no one in this universe of Game of Thrones, of House of the Dragon, no one gets to do what they want. Everyone has to do their duty, or like, you know, you come from a shitty family, you got to just be a poor the whole time. I don't know. But this guy, he's like, yeah, I have a wife. Yeah, I have a powerful family. Yeah, I have children that count on me. Yeah, I'm the heir to Driftmark. Yeah, I have a sweet dragon. Fuck it all. I just want to go off with my lover and Carl with a Q and just be, you know, just have sex with men. Whatever. Like, that's all he wanted to do. And he gave it all up for it. And like, I just think there's something to be said. So he's a winner. Maybe he's not the most valuable, but he's a winner this season for sure.
That's a really good point. Did anyone on Game of Thrones ever do that? Like, nah, this is what I want.
Like,
I'm gonna go do that.
I don't think there was. Like,
that's a great point.
Yeah. So
and only one person had to die for him to live his happily ever after, which that's a shitty way to die. But whoever that was in the fire, that sucks. But
yeah, imagine like that dude like has worked his entire life protecting the family Velaryon. He's just wandering on the stairs and just going to snap for this plot. Like, what the fuck did that guy do?
No idea why.
Still in a way protecting them. Like, he continued to do his duty.
He did.
I guess he did. But the real MVP of the season is us, right? It's us. It's all of us on this call. But it's all of us that get to watch this, because straight up, like, it's been 3 years since Game of Thrones ended. and it ended in a way that most people were not super happy about, right? And so you never really know what the legacy was going to be of Game of Thrones. And I said it after, like, when we did our first episode on the pilot of this show, that if they stick the landing with this show, if this show is great, House of the Dragon, it's going to do so much for the legacy of Game of Thrones. And already I've been talking to people who had never seen Game of Thrones and have never seen this, but like, you know, it's like, hey, watch House of the Dragon first. It's easier to get through. It's not as intimidating, and you will definitely like it. And that will definitely make you want to go back and rewatch Game of Thrones. And so I just think that ultimately for the fans like us, you know, it's just great to have this kind of content be brought back into this world. So yeah, I stand by that. We are the real MVP, or the real winners, the real MVPs of this season.
That's a great point. You know what, Noah? I would say, sorry, just to jump in really quick.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much nostalgia is brought back by watching House of the Dragon and getting back into that lore and that world, and how much I miss all of us. Every Sunday, we're so excited to watch Game of Thrones and for it to end the way it did. I know some people are happy about it. Most people weren't, but it is really nice to be back in that world and be able to talk about it.
Yeah, and it makes you just think about some of the things that happen in this that remind you of something that happened in Game of Thrones. And like, then we're focusing on those awesome parts of the show. We're not just focused on the end, which was what it was. You know what I mean? We're really thinking about some of these moments that really stuck with us for such a long time and then kind of got forgotten about. So speaking of forgotten about and maybe some big losers, there's a lot of them, where we have a lot of losers throughout this entire each episode. But for the season-long LVP, Travis, who are you thinking? Who do you have for that?
Yeah, so it's funny, you know, thinking back on the show, I feel like, you know, the show being 10 episodes started months ago now, that you almost forget about some of the people early on. The biggest LVP the whole season was Crab Feeder. I mean, the worst villain of all time. It's almost like you forget about him. He was in this show so long ago. The first episode, maybe the second episode too, he was hyped up to be the big bad villain. The whole show was kind of revolving around, and then he just died like that in episode 3, and you never thought about him again. The show has moved completely past him. He's a barely anyone remembers him.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. The Crab Feeder, we cut off a little bit there, Travis, at the end there, but I mean, yeah, that was a lot of buildup for a whole lot of nothing.
I would assume that you probably are saying all we remember him as being cut in half, being dragged out of that cave, which is all I remember him for. And his like weird, straggly hair.
Disgusting. Gross skin. Face, half a face.
Let's just turn this into the roast of Crab Man.
I like that.
So disrespectful.
Allie's like, don't disrespect
he was
my second MVP.
He was your favorite character. Allie, who was your LVP?
So I honestly think the characters I was just the most disappointed in were Rhaenyra's kids. Like, I just wanted so much more from them. They fucking sucked. They were such pussies. Like, you would think with such a powerhouse family, like, you would be cool literally at all. And especially considering, like, Aemon turned out to be a little bit, like, low-key badass. And even Aegon, like, at least he was pure comedy. But Rhaenyra's kids, I just, like, hadn't felt no feelings for, which sounds really creepy. But it's like I didn't care about them at all. That sucked. But in terms of, like, who took the most L's this season, like, it's got to be Viserys. Like, that dude is looking on from the afterlife. Like, I built this peaceful kingdom where I just wanted this big happy family and everyone to be happy, and then it just like completely goes to hell the moment he dies. And you know,
I mean, sweet dad.
But he don't know that. He, in his mind, he went out on the highest note, but he was watching everyone having a great time. He got carried out and was like, "Oh, I did it."
Like, we were all laughing behind his back the entire, like, at him, not with him.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point though, where whether he knew it or not, he is the LVP of the season, right? Because the biggest loser, he went from being the leader of the Targaryen dynasty, the biggest and baddest dynasty then, with the dragons and everything that's ever existed. He's called Viserys the Peaceful, and that's really kind of his vibe. Like, he was a good dude, but he thought he was doing the right thing, but the decisions that he made and the decisions he didn't make ultimately led to the destruction of his entire dynasty. Like his legacy is almost the beginning of the end of the Targaryens. And so, you know, if that's what your legacy is like, then you're a loser. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he made bad decisions necessarily. Like, dude,
Okay, let's run through them. Let's run through them. All right.
He had Otto scheming, but I mean, maybe you could say he should have like given Otto the boot like way earlier. He had like everything.
He
working
gave him the
against
boot and he brought him back.
Okay. Brad,
That
here
was-
we go. Look, first off, he was short-sighted. He named his daughter heir before he needed to. Okay, that was one. Whether you like Rhaenyra or not, it was a short-sighted move. He ignored everyone's advice, and instead of marrying Lena Valerian or anyone else he was told to, which would have been great for his alliances and shoring up the legacy and shoring up the family and all that, he married Alicent out of nowhere, which alienated them. He refused to take action against some of these enemies, which would have helped the alliances and all that. He sent away Daemon, who, even though Daemon's crazy, Daemon was nothing but loyal to him. And like, when you don't have someone really, truly looking after you, and Daemon said that to him, you know, I'm the only one that really had your back here. I mean, he made a lot of very bad decisions.
Other than those, though, nothing. No, I'll argue with you on the like him naming his daughter heir, because like yeah, in hindsight we could look at it. Oh, he did that before he had to. But if that dude would have got like 2 days later, like no one knows. That dude, remember at the beginning of the season, like we didn't know he was gonna last as long as he did. He was bleeding on the chair. We thought at the time like, oh, this guy's gonna go any day now. Like so,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
but it's a
he did have
thing
the
in
name
this.
heir.
It's a thing in this thing where it's like, this person will rule in my stead until the heir comes of age, kind of thing. Like that's what Robert said. Like Ned Stark will rule until Joffrey comes of age. He could have said, what's her name? Rhaenyra is my heir unless I have a boy, and then that happened or whatever. Like,
so we should have named them interim. He should have named their interim coach.
10-day contract.
He's the Lindsay Hunter of fucking
yeah.
King's Landing.
No one's buying into an interim coach.
What else? Caterade.
My LVP is Kristen Cole. I hate his face. And also in this picture, he looks really ugly, which I
That doesn't
didn't
even
until
look
I
like
put it
him.
up. He looks like a troll.
It looks
But
like-
he is kind of like, he started out really strong for me. I was like, dude, this guy's hot. Like he is like bound to Rhaenyra. He's defending her. Like this is great. And then he got like so love struck and was just like, I don't know. He just like was obsessed with her and then lost his mind and went to Allison's side. And I just hated him ever since. And he's like killing people. He's running around killing people and nobody seems to care. And I just hate him.
He does
Yeah,
look
that
really
dude was
weird in that
fucking
picture. That does not look like him.
No, Allie, what are your thoughts on that? I see you making faces over there.
That dude fucking sucks. Like he was just simping all over the place. Like there's never been a bigger simp on earth. And when he's like, oh, come, we had sex one time. Like he is an incel. Like leave your whole queendom to come bang me across the narrow sea. Like who the fuck do you think you are, dude? Like,
Yeah.
oh man, he was the worst. And then he was just like so angry. Like he was just a typical male, honestly.
Okay, for a decade though, he couldn't get over a one-night stand, and so he was salty for a decade.
He
so
had to have lost his
sad.
virginity to her. Had to.
Had to have. Kate, question for you: when you see a character's face in a scene, who do you hate more, Lara Strong or Kristen Cole?
Kristen Cole.
Ooh,
Yeah.
really?
Next.
Yeah.
Kelsey, you feel the same way?
Hell no. At least Kristen Cole is nice to look at. Like Laris definitely looks like a creep, and he is a creep. So no, I don't want to look at his face at all.
Yeah, but at least
I
when
agree,
Laris
Kristen-
comes on, we're like, what now? What is this? motherfucker doing?
At least he's like useful to somebody.
He's not useful to anybody. He killed his whole family
Useful
for
to
no fucking
Allison.
reason, just so he could see Ellison's feet. Was it like cool?
He gives her good info.
I really hope that there's nothing more to it. It doesn't evolve into anything else. Literally, all the shit that he did is literally just for the feet pics. Like, it just doesn't evolve.
Family, because he was playing the long game of looking at feet.
He's like, you can't get this anywhere else. Children fights, yes. Queen, I think you got to kill my whole family.
All right. Anybody else have a LVP that is not Kristen Cole or King Viserys?
I would say my LVP, speaking of Queen Alicent, is Queen Alicent herself. I just cannot stand her story arc. I think it's absolutely horrible. She turns into a hypocritical, self-loathing, just wretch of a woman who she, like, if we want to talk about people fucking things up, she fucks things up. Like, thinking that for some reason there's 10 Aegons and King Viserys is only talking about her Aegon. Like, I cannot stand it. The whole, I don't know if she was behind the whole like ploy with like the picture that Otto gives to Rhaenyra that starts, you know, making Rhaenyra question things. But I can't stand hypocrisy. And especially when religion is used for hypocrisy and shit like that. So like, she's my LVP for sure. But other than that, I would say, King Viserys's whatever skin condition, because we had to look at that for way too long. We thought he was going to die within the first episode, and he literally was a rotting corpse the whole time. And we had to see him have sex. Oh, so bad. So bad.
I had the time jumps. I really thought, like, I wish they would have either been able to spend, like, I'm super impatient. I always like want to get to the main point and blah blah blah, but like I wish they would either spent a little bit more time with all these characters rather than just showing us one key moment in their lives that's gonna, like, because in our minds, like, that's gonna define them. Everything Aemon does, we're like, oh, it's because he got bullied as a kid. That's all we saw. So I wish they would have either spent more time with each character, or like, you could do things like with Jaime Lannister. We don't know anything of his backstory except for what people say about him. We never see flashbacks of him. We hear about him being the Kingslayer, and then we hear the story later of like why he did what we did, and we're like, oh, there's more to this character than I thought. By them choosing what moments they show us of each of these characters, I feel like they've kind of like set up how we're supposed to feel about them, and you know, a lot more.
Yeah,
I think that's well said. And I think that's one of the main differences between Game of Thrones, at least, you know, from what we saw of Game of Thrones compared to what we've seen so far of House of the Dragon, where House of the Dragon seems to be a little bit more kind of in your face and less up for interpretation a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder too how much they felt rushed to like get to big crazy shit because people got used to that. Like Game of Thrones, like season 1, you weren't like, come on, where's all the epic crazy scenes? Like, when's the crazy shit gonna happen? Like, Game of Thrones set a lot of like TV audiences up to expect that. So I wonder if House of the Dragon was like, dude, we can't do a first season where like there's not a crazy big, you know, Battle of the Bastards type setup. We can't. We got to get to that stuff faster.
I don't know, but we'll probably talk about this more later with like one of our topics. But like the first scene of the first episode of Game of Thrones is a little boy being pushed out of a tower. Like, that's it, you just aren't seeing stuff like that in House of the Dragon, but I will go into
that's
that
true.
more. But that kind of goes into what you're talking about of like, there's not like that long game. It's kind of, well, it's my cringe thing if we want to move on, unless you had an LVP that we haven't talked about.
No, I think that's a perfect segue right here to go into the cringiest moment of the entire season. So Kelsey, why don't you keep it going?
So mine isn't an actual cringe moment. I would say moments of, I mean, Brad put it so eloquently, of them just hitting the audience over the head with shit over and over and over. And it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just two things. It was multiple things throughout multiple episodes, usually. Like when it comes to Larys being like gay, when it comes to the whole strong boys, like that thing, like, and also, you know, seeing Larys, I think we talked about this in a previous episode too, but the things that Larys does behind the scenes, the White Worm being revealed so quick, it's just very elementary when it comes to storytelling, and especially what you come to expect. So for me, that's really cringe, and that's a part of what kind of takes me out of House of the Dragon a little bit, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Kelsey, I literally think the exact same thing. That was exactly my cringe moment too. Like specifically them just like literally beating us over the head with the bastard thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I know we'll talk about this later. I don't think the show holds a candle to Game of Thrones at all. Like it was purely like for my entertainment. Like Travis's fucking kids could watch it and say, I know what's going on. Like
Please
even
no,
Brad
no.
could just say like for you to just say like, oh, I wonder if they were like felt compelled to like hit us with those big moments like we had in Game of Thrones. Like what big moments are you talking about? Like Rhaenys could have easily Dracarys them all in the 9th episode. Like the show would have gone on, as we know from the Red Wedding. Like there was just a lot of, I wanted Game of Thrones back. And I know, Noah, you're always like, oh, it's not the same. Like it literally has the same theme song. Like it just was really, I don't want to say like poorly done. I don't mean that I was entertained. I like the show. I can't wait for next season and everything, but just exact same thing as Kelsey of just like nothing was schemy. Everything was obvious. They told us literally everything. I don't know.
I will say, I remember even early on, like in Game of Thrones, when we were always campaigning, we were always telling people, you got to watch it, you got to watch it. And so I think I watched season 1 of Game of Thrones. I mean, I probably can't even count on maybe 2 hands how many times I saw season 1, because I would always watch with people who would start watching and they have questions and they would always be texting me different questions. Wait, who is this again? What does this mean? Like, what's going on with this relationship? There really were no questions like that of season. Like you could watch it once and you get what's happening in House of the Dragon, for better or for worse. But yeah, I feel you. I understand what you're saying completely. Travis, over to you. Do you have one that's a specific moment from the season, or is it something more like that speaks to just how the entire thing was put together?
No, I thought about this in terms of just moments, like one moment of a show, and there's a ton of them. I mean, Aegon when he's jerking off early in the show,
forgot about that.
Talking about cringy, talking about uncomfortable, and for me that one. That's actually my runner-up, so I'll real quick on that one. It's not actually him jerking off that was cringe. It was his mom walking in and just talking to him, like
laying on
no
the bed. She like touches his leg under the covers.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, walk out, like just get the dude a minute to compose himself. It's terrible for everybody. Yeah, like hey, clean yourself up, meet me outside for 5 minutes, and I'll yell at you then. Like that's just awful. Allison, not the LVP for me, but that was an LVP moment. But for me, the most cringe moment was when Lena was trying to marry Viserys early on in the show. She's like talking about his dragons, like kind of trying to seduce him. And I know in this world, it's like kind of normal, that age gap. It wasn't a big deal. It was the same, age gap that he ended up having with Allison, other than like 3 years. So it's no big difference. But just that she looked like she was 9 and he was like 40. It was just like, I remember watching that and just going, oh my God, it's uncomfortable. So that's my cringe moment.
Yeah, I was going to say the casting is so... Allison at least looks older. You could maybe say like older teens, maybe young 20s in her younger stage. She looked like she was 5 to me. Like they were trying to say she was 12 years old or whatever she was supposed to be. She looked like she was about to go learn her ABCs.
And she's like, I'll give you many fine children of the blood of old Valeria. And it's like, oh my God.
Like, yeah, like when my blood comes, I can give you children. It's like, Jesus, I don't need this.
Oh goodness, man. Similarly, I guess with her just looking like a little baby, and just going back a little bit, I think that as much as some of the casting was a little strange, where older Aemond looks so much older than older Aegon, but really the casting job they did specifically with young Rhaenyra, older Rhaenyra, young Allison, older Allison, it's like incredible. One of the best I've ever seen when you put them next to each other and all that. So that was unbelievable. And I think the casting people could be an MVP of this season as well. But for my cringiest moments, I mean, there were 2 big ones, and I did forget about King Aegon jerking off. But for me, it was the childbirth scenes. I couldn't get over it, and we couldn't get past it because there were so many over the course of the season. It was just really ridiculous. Starting in episode 1, we see Queen Emma. They cut the baby out of her, and that was just like a goddamn kind of thing. Then we see Rhaenyra when she gives birth, and she has to go see Allison right away, and there's afterbirth on the ground and the trail of blood, and that was fucking gross. The next Lena, she literally chooses to burn herself to death because the childbirth was so bad. And then the finale where like the premature birth, and she has to grab it out of herself and oh god,
That one was so bad.
They
Oh, it was
all
awful.
so and like just
Yeah.
so that I mean the foot fetish, super cringy. The way they did it, where there was like the gradual escalation of the scene, where like she kind of just turns at first, you don't really think anything of it. Then she takes off her shoes, and it's like, okay, weird, but whatever. Then she takes off her, then she like they just kept going up. That was so freaking weird and cringy. And then he just starts, jaying it as we talked about. But man, I couldn't get past the childbirth things though.
No, I had the same one of Laris's foot fetish. It was so creepy to me. And then you start thinking about it, kind of like we already said, you start thinking about it and you're like, did he kill his whole family for feet? And then it's even more cringy.
It was just like, why? Like, where did that come from? It was almost like Game of Thrones, like trying to be relatable or like funny in the real world or something. Like, budget Littlefinger did not need to go that far.
Yeah, and I read something which does make sense, of course, and maybe everyone thought of this except for me, but they basically said that it wasn't necessarily just about the fetish and the feet. It's about demeaning the queen and the most powerful woman, like coming down a level and having power over the most powerful woman. And I guess that makes a little bit more sense with it. But man, I just can't get past the one visual of her turning to the side, looking away as he's playing with himself. That was just crazy.
Like, even so, like demeaning her, like make her show titties. Like,
I'm like, there's a long list.
Yes, please.
Noah's gonna write to the show producers now. Like, I think your feet scenes can be a little bit stronger. All right.
Yeah.
Does this tell us more about George?
I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter. Make these feet scenes into titty scenes, please. Season 2. Make that happen.
There really weren't a lot of titties, actually, now that you think about it.
No, and I think that's probably a good thing, that especially considering the fact that the two main characters of this show are females, and having female writers and female directors for a number of the episodes, which I don't really think Game of Thrones ever did. It was a good thing to see that kind of way it was portrayed and be a little bit more, accurate from a female's perspective, I suppose. But that might be a little bit why. So I don't know.
I mean, it was good with the female perspective not to have all the rape scenes for sure.
Yeah.
We didn't need those anymore. We had enough rape scenes, but I don't know if we need to replace with childbirth scenes. Like, they went from one extreme to the other.
True that.
It just lands somewhere in the middle and we're fine.
Completely. Well, moving on, our next category is best fight. So, Brad, who do you have as your best fight of this season?
I think they have a name for it. I don't know if they have a name, like a Battle of the Bastards or anything. But when I put Damon versus everybody. Like when he's going after the crab feed. I mean, yeah, granted, like that was a big letdown at the end in terms of his battle, quote unquote, battle with the crab feeder. But that scene, like leading up to it, where he's just like kicking everybody's ass, and he's taking like, he knows how to zigzag, from time to time. Like, he really showed how it was done. I thought that was the best fight scene I could think of. That was, because a lot of the other fight scenes, it seems, were either just like in like jousting with each other. There was like a lot of that, which were cool, but it's not like life or death. Like, this was like a suicide mission he definitely went on that we didn't know which way it was gonna go. So I thought that was like the most badass like fight scene, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, that was my same one, was that it was Damon just basically going after the crab feeder. And it's really funny that you bring up the zigzag, because there was like thousands of arrows coming down on him. And how did he not, like, I think he only had one and it barely hit him in the shoulder or whatever. But thinking upon it, it's not truly a fight scene, but I think a turning point, or that we see, especially because it comes after a time jump, is when Queen Alicent stabs Rhaenyra in front of everybody, and she says, okay, now everyone sees you for who you truly are. So I think that was a huge turning point. But I agree, just anytime Damon was fighting, or even all the shit that he said like all the time to people, like I guess that could be like verbal fighting. I love that shit.
Allie, who you got?
Yeah, I said the exact same thing. Honestly, I like can't even really remember that much fighting going on. Like, I feel like the show was relatively tame, and like I did think the crab feeder thing was like kind of dumb, but yeah, it was exciting. I feel like it was the only time in the show that I was like, oh shit, what's gonna happen here? And also just it being episode 2, I think that like got me pumped, like, oh, this is gonna be some Game of Thrones shit. Like, this happened in episode 2. Like, where are we going? Where are we going from here? And yeah, I just obviously love Damon. I guess the only other like super notable fight scene is obviously the kids fighting, but it's not like they were badass or anything. Like, I wanted some like Battle of the Bastards, you know, type stuff. And I feel like, yeah, Damon and the crab dude were the closest that we got, which was sweet.
I will say that the kids fighting like could be a cringe too, because like, to your point, Rhaenyra's kids being such a disappointment, like they're always getting their ass beat all the time. How are you not learning at all, even in the time jump? Like, they didn't get any better. If anything, they got worse. So yeah, it's terrible.
No, you got Rhaenyra versus a pig, right?
It's a boar. It's a wild
on
boar.
that pig.
Yeah, I actually had it with the kids as my best fight. I like that scene a lot, where it was like 4 against 1. Aemon was holding his own against the 4 of them, but like the little girl, I don't think it was Bela, punched Aemon in the face, and then he punched her back. I'm like, God damn. Yeah. He's like, you will die screaming in flames just as your father did, bastards. I'm like, God, like that's when you first see Aemon. He was always timid and a little weird. But as soon as he got Vhagar, he just became a complete psycho, and it changed his entire personality. And you saw it in this scene for the first time, and it led to his eye getting cut out by Lucerys. So yeah, that was actually my best fight. What about you, Travis?
Yeah, you know, I think it's been mentioned there wasn't a ton of fight scenes in the show, so the only one that wasn't mentioned was the dragon fight at the end. But since there wasn't a ton of fight scenes, I'll say my best fight is the upcoming fight between Aemon and Daemon.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that. I mean, they have the same name. It's like the Spider-Man meme, looking at each other like Luigi Waluigi. Yeah, exactly. Like, they're going to be the best rivals of all time. They better match up, I think. And I haven't read the books. Back to MVP. Shout out to all of us for not reading the books.
Yeah,
makes it way more exciting. With Game of Thrones, I had read them all, so still really enjoyed it. But it's different, not knowing anything. So I have no idea if they're actually going to meet. But I feel like they have to, and I can't wait for that. So that'll be my best fight scene. Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I feel like that has to happen, but I'm also kind of like, how would anyone know that Aemon took down Luke unless he just goes home and snitches on himself?
Yeah.
Well, so going back to that scene, I actually have a couple questions for you. So I assume that, like, maybe they are, as much as it seems like they're flying around so much, like maybe the roars and stuff, they could hear it from Dragonstone, and then someone snitched or something.
Well,
or like that's
I saw a tweet that in the book, the reason they know is because like a couple days later, the dragon's body washes up on like the shore, and so they're like, oh no, he obviously got murked by this other dragon. But again, like, I'm not sure, like, Aemon could literally go home and be like, I don't know what happened there.
Everything's fine. Nothing to see here.
I mean,
no one's got that. Like,
yeah,
he could, but like, keep in mind, like, a lot of people were like, you know, it, like, whether they were Baratheons or whatever, were there, and the last thing they saw was Aemon go running out after Luke, like when he left. So it'd be like, I don't know, last we saw that kid, like, Aemon was getting on his dragon, was kind of telling Luke he needed to take an eye out, and then that's when.
But would they snitch on themselves though? They were going to go onto the green side. So
they didn't do
no,
it.
but why would they even say they're going to the green side? So why would they even say anything to?
True.
Yeah, but it could have been like a maid or something like that isn't necessarily on that side, and then saw that shit happen, and read a little raven, something. But do you think
that happened? Like, Luke is also a little bitch. He could have ran into a cliff. Like,
I also read though in the books that they said that it happened like right next to Old Town. Like, it was in the skies over Old Town, so they still saw it. Or not Old Town, but Storm's End.
Yeah,
where the Baratheons are. So the people saw it apparently. And in the show, they flew for miles, but in the books, it's like right there.
Gotcha.
That'd be wild if season 2 opens with like a bunch of people going about their day-to-day business in a town, and dragon pieces just start like falling on people living in this town as they're like getting water for the day.
That'd
Or
be like an
Bonjour.
episode of The Boys mashup.
I mean, I know what the answer is here, but like, can you? Okay, I'm thinking of people just doing their thing, dragon pieces and guts fly on them, or you're just like, you know, a citizen of King's Landing, like working your trade as a blacksmith, walking around, and you just get nut flying on you from Aemon who's Aegon jerking off on that. But, sorry,
That's
that
someone's
was
origin story right there.
hey, that's some royal sperm right there. Do you think Aemond, when he goes back and they're like, you did what? Do you think he's gonna be like, yo, I couldn't control Vagar kind of like, I didn't mean to? Or do you think he's gonna try to look badass and like, yeah, he insulted our family and so I had to do it? Or like, how do you think he's going to handle that?
I think that's a really good question. You said like, I think we know the answer.
Well, no, because I was going to ask you which one's more gross than the
I think with that one, I'm blinded by the tweets. Like all the tweets were like, Aemond when he shows back up at King's Landing, it's him being like, you know, that's that. Like he's, yeah, that is a good question.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's two different things. Is he honest with his, you know, with Otto and Allison, but then how they spin it? You know, I think he probably comes back to them and he's like, this has happened, but then Otto's like, we got to own it. At this point, we're not going to apologize for it. You know, so it's two different things. Whether the realm hears and what the family hears.
I like that actually.
Also, we had a discussion about this last time too. Do you guys think that Otto is still at Dragonstone? He hasn't left yet, has he? I don't think he has.
Like, I mean, he was waiting there for an answer the next day.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought he was like still waiting there. So I think that will make a difference as well of like being able, because then if Otto was back, then he could be like, well, look, we gave Rhaenyra a chance and she didn't, they can say that she denied it or she did the first move or something, like made a gesture or whatever. And then now she's, I don't even know, maybe that she sent Luke there to do something to Aegon or I mean, Aemond or whatever.
I just think that if Otto was still there, they would have showed that. I think that he just bounced.
I don't know. I really think he's there. We should make bets on that.
Yeah,
I honestly don't know.
Yeah,
I just assumed he left, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah, where do you fall on that, Travis?
I would say he left. I think it's been days. I guess I assumed it was a few days before Luke left. So I would say he's gone.
And Allie?
I assume we're gonna get another time jump, episode 1, season 2. So like, I don't think he would like still be there or something because I think we're gonna go into the future. But yeah, like again, I saw the tweet that was like in the book. It's like several days later that they find out.
See, man,
but I think
that's a cop out. If we get a time jump, I'll be so mad. Like, I want to see Aemon walking in there like, so how'd it go? Like, how are things over there? We shouldn't get to see that. We shouldn't be deprived of that.
No, I feel like we will. I feel like we'll see that.
They have to.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next award, Best Death. So there were some really good ones here for different reasons. I actually have 3 options myself, but I want to hear what you all think first. So Kelsey, why don't you lead us off with your best death?
I mean, the most badass death for sure is Princess Lena going out in her own terms. She knows what's about to happen. She overhears the doctor talking to Daemon about, yo, you can either cut her open and the child might survive. We're not sure, but the mom's definitely going to die. But I've done everything I can here. And obviously there's some foreshadowing that hits you on the head, I think, in that episode. But she says that she wants to go out, or maybe the episode before, that she wants to go out a dragon fighter's death or a dragon rider's death. And she does. And she goes out on her own terms. So that was my favorite death. But Luke's bitch ass, in Allie's terms, getting murked. I mean, that sets off the whole Dance of the Dragon. So I think that's dumb. Or I mean, it's great. And then also, I guess the shittiest death is fucking Sir Kristen just pushing down the maester and he just fucking can't control his body like a marionette and just falling and getting his whole face caved in. That's a shitty death.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That was that was funny.
Pushed him down and then he's like
Yeah, well, it was on that ball. I don't know what that ball is that they all are in front of all of them at that table.
What
It
is
just-
that?
I don't know. I
They
don't
never
know.
explained it.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
But I like it, but I don't understand it. Yeah, Allie, who was the best death for you?
Definitely best death for me was Damon's first wife. That shit was so funny. Like, you just all of a sudden, he's just there, like shysting, like he does, and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna kill her. This is wild. And then just the aftermath when her cousin is like, oh, like, I will avenge her, and he literally says, who are you? Like, it was just classic Damon, you know?
He's like, actually, I've been meaning to talk to you because I'm the heir of that area now too, right? Should I just go and claim what's owed to me, right? And the guy's like, see you later.
Yeah, he just like, he pops up in the shiest fit, and it's like, you know it's going down. And it's just so funny to me.
Well, she could have survived if she wouldn't have talked shit. Like, he was about to just walk away.
Yep.
He's like, all right, you stay here with your horse. It's fine. Someone will find you.
Phase.
Okay, you go first.
Best death for me was Damon, where he just got his head sliced right off by my bae, Damon. Because he was just yelling about Damon's wife. He's just yelling about Rhaenyra and how she has bastards and she's a whore. And while all that would be true.
Kid, how did that sound? How did he say that?
Oh, I think you should tell us, Noah.
Wait, you mean the part where he's like, her children are bastards. She's a whore.
Exactly that.
Nailed it.
And then just boom, sliced off from behind. You didn't see it coming. It was just, I loved it. I thought it was great.
It's funny, actually. Kelsey said mine Kelsey went from saying Lena, which was mine originally, but then right after that, when she was like, but Luke, and I'm like, oh yo, I didn't think of that one. So I think I might go with Luke, because that was wild, and I don't have anything as crazy as that scene was. I don't have that scene for any award, so I think I'll say that one. And obviously, like Travis said, it has the most ramifications long term.
Also, so crazy. It was one chomp. Literally, it's not like Vhagar went back for seconds and thirds. She just it was just the most nonchalant chomp, and just bits and pieces scattered everywhere. And it just truly showed the size of Vhagar. Obviously the scenes ahead of it did too, but you're just like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm. Travis, do you have any ones that weren't covered yet?
Yeah, I'll say best death was Joffrey, our guy Joffrey, pre-time jump. Remember, he thought he was like Littlefinger. He's siling up to Kristen Cole. He's like, hey, I got some secrets for you. He's trying to make alliances, and then he just gets his face bashed in the middle of a wedding. So Joffrey, for even trying.
No, that's good. And then again, anytime that someone named Joffrey gets murdered brutally, it's just great. I have two other good options. The first would be King Viserys. It was just such an awesome death, and the actor just acted his ass off. I thought they wrote his character so well, and just seeing visually his mannerisms, mimicking how terrible his body looked. I just thought that death was very effective and very good. And then my last one would be that one soldier in the opening scene of I don't know, episode 2 or something like that, where he's getting tortured by the crab feeder. He's on the stake, and Daemon comes in with the fire and Caraxes, and he's like, yes, Daemon's here to save me. You guys are all fucked now. Save me, Daemon. And then the dragon fucking just stomps.
Great memory. I forgot about that.
I totally forgot.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
god.
great. That was one of my favorite moments overall, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I thought that was a really
hilarious.
Honestly, though, that's a way better death, just getting squished by a dragonfoot than getting slowly eaten by a crab.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That dude was like a guy in a LeBron James jersey going to a game, sticking his hand out for a high five, and LeBron James just walks right by him.
Or no, LeBron James smacks him in the face like that.
Get out of here, kid.
That's totally the same, Brad. Yeah, the very. You know, like when LeBron just ignores a random fan and like it's the same as
Like,
getting
that dude was
squished by
cheering
your
so hard. Like he was so all about it. Like, here we go. Let's get him, guys.
Also,
Now,
I
the
love how
one
he's
ends
talking.
in death.
Yes, he's talking so much shit as he's chained to a pole, getting eaten by crabs. No, he's getting talked shit to by like the crab feeder guy, saying that like you're a bastard and all this shit. And you're like, how, like talking, like going back to like also like about like, oh, like every man, like you're in the worst possible position to be talking any kind of shit. Like whether you get stomped by a dragon or not, like holy shit. Oh God, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. Well, a lot of good moments for sure. Our next award would be for best scene of the season. Let's keep it with you, Travis. What do you got for your favorite scene?
Yeah, this was a hard one. This was a hard one for sure. I'd say my favorite scene was I feel like I keep going first half of the show. Maybe that speaks to my thoughts on the show overall. But pre-time jump, when Rhaenyra stands up to Daemon, when she's on Otto's side to get the egg back from Daemon.
Yeah.
On the stairs of where they live, where the Targaryens live. Dragonstone. Thank you. They're on the stairs of Dragonstone. She's on Otto's side against Daemon, and she comes out on top. She totally owns it. She controls the moment. She gets the egg back. There's no bloodshed. And then just comparing it to the scene later on when she's at the exact same place on the stairs, but on Daemon's side, I thought it was just a cool comparison. But I'll take it for one scene. I'll take the early one.
Love that.
Yeah.
What about you, Allie?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off Kate's favorite death. Like it was for sure when Daemon just slices Daemon's head right in half and is like, he can keep his tongue. So good. But I also feel like I've been wanting to touch on this. I feel like a lot of people or just the internet overwhelmingly are gonna say like, oh, when Alicent walked in the green dress or whatever. And I'm just totally with Kelsey. Like I'm not even like I fucking hate Alicent like I normally am with literally everything. It's just like she like was not believable at all. Like she was so performative. Like no part of me was like, oh, Alicent's a force to be reckoned with. Like people being like she's just like Cersei. I'm like, are we watching the same show? Like she absolutely sucked. So really I just wanted to take that moment to say that Alicent was literally terrible, didn't seem cool, did not seem powerful, and was a bitch. Anyway, what was yours, Noah?
Oh, I think Kate should go next. Kate, what was your favorite scene?
Well, actually,
I knew
it was Alicent walking into the
Yes.
She pulled your card, Kate.
And not because like it was like Alicent was like a big, powerful, scary girl at that point. It was just like for me, just like a huge turning point of like, oh shit, like like they are not friends anymore. Like they cannot trust each other anymore. And I just thought like visually, like I just thought it was really cool with her just like coming in right in the middle of Viserys' speech and the music and everything. That scene still gives me chills.
It's funny you guys mentioned like the hitting things over the head, which I never felt that way. The only time I really felt that way was during that scene when Larys leans in and is like, she's wearing all green.
Oh,
you know what that means? I'm like, no one talks like that. Like, no one's at the wedding of like, we all know what that means, don't we?
See, but like, okay, hold on. So I agree with you, Kate. I did like that scene, and I actually liked. It's heavy-handed for sure, but I liked how he said that because at that point we hadn't heard the whole greens versus the blacks. Like, no, I guarantee no one even realized that House Hightower's colors were green. And so by making that like that would have fallen much more flat if they didn't explain it the way that they did.
True.
Yeah, but that's a perfect example though of something that would happen that comes out later or that is like explained in a more roundabout way. Yes.
Yeah,
like
we would have figured it out just like we always did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do better and we'll figure it out.
Do better.
All right.
So does that leave me?
Go ahead.
Or Brad, did you just said, right?
No.
My favorite scene, you guys talked a little bit about a scene, but wait.
Go,
Let me
Kelsey.
just
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Go.
I'm confused on what's happening. Okay. You guys talked about earlier about a scene between Daemon and King Viserys, but I had another one of when Viserys is going up the steps towards the Iron Throne and Daemon picks up his crown and puts on his head. And then the fact that you learn after that was improv is just, it's so beautiful. I think it eloquently shows the dynamic between Viserys and Daemon that you guys mentioned earlier, of how Daemon always had his back no matter what. They were true brothers, and it was just a really beautiful and powerful scene. And that one was definitely my favorite.
I love that scene. I didn't want to choose it because I'm like, oh, everyone's gonna pick that one, so I didn't want to choose it. But I love that scene.
Everyone was gonna pick it.
So good.
Travis.
Well, I already went with the favorite scene with Rhaenyra.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Then so Brad.
Yeah, I actually had the Viserys climbing the Iron Throne, which and that's why I do think, like, and I know we'll get more into it. Like, I disagree with Ali. Like, I think I like the show more than Ali did. Like, I definitely don't think it compares to Game of Thrones, but I think that's good that, like, we all had different scenes, because I think it would be a sign of a really bad show if we're all like, yo, the only scene we're talking about is this. Like, when I picked him climbing the Iron Throne, I'm like, dude, that's what everyone's gonna have. But everyone's picked like different scenes, and I'm like, oh shit, that was a really good scene. So I'm like, there at least were a few to choose from. I thought it was gonna be everybody picking either Daemon heading towards the crab feeder or climbing the Iron Throne. I thought it was going to be those two between everybody, and like no one had picked those. So,
well, I have a different one too. Actually, my favorite one was the Last Supper, or King Viserys's Last Supper, and because there were so many elements that went into that scene that I thought were just so good. Where you had like the really heartfelt portion where like you see the king who looks like shit, really begging his family to like, please get along. I'm begging you. I'm asking you this, not as a king, but a father and a brother and this and that. Like, please. And just you kind of felt for him in that moment. And you had some funny moments where what's her name? Bug Girl is clowning on her husband Aegon, and the heartfelt parts where like Bela and Rhaena, and then Luke and Jace, like they were kind of having their little relationships and happy together, and they have a little dance section, and even Otto was over there like clapping like Hercules, he's all clapping for him when they're dancing, and then all of a sudden, things go bad where Aemon gives the strong boys toast, and shit goes down, and all that. But I just think there were so many things and so many aspects of that scene that just made it so good, and we didn't even mention the one that Kelsey mentioned earlier, where the kind of scene where everything comes together after Aemon's eye gets cut out, and it's really the first real confrontation there between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and you see the two factions, you see the black side, the green side, and I just that one was really, really great too. So I agree with you, a lot of good options, Brad, but that's what is a mark of a great show. Now with we talked about the greatest scenes and our favorite scenes, but there were a lot of good lines too that are said by a lot of different characters. So what I want to do, I have a whole lot of options myself, but since I already made a fool out of myself with the one, we're going to go down the list. You all are going to say the lines, and I would like you to say it in your impressions of the characters who said them originally. Ali G, you were the first one I'm looking at, and you specifically asked not to be called on first. So naturally.
Come on. Okay, well, I wrote down a lot. Like, obviously, my favorite one, my favorite character to my least favorite character is when Daemon, they're all at the funeral. Daemon goes to Otto, and Otto's like, I'm so sorry for your loss. And Daemon's like, no matter how fat the leech grows, it always goes for another meal. Like that.
That was very good. That was good.
Thanks.
I like the hands on the hip, like a leech, like
another leech.
Daemon definitely did that.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Kate, you're next up.
Okay, I have two. I'll try to do this. The only thing that could tear down the house of the dragon was the dragon itself.
Ooh.
Negroni Sabbiano with Prosecco.
Ooh, that was really good.
Spagliato.
I'm obsessed with her voice, so if that sounded good, that's great.
Okay, great
Dude,
work.
we should break that.
And then I just have one more little one.
Okay.
What is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy? Just because, like, that's the whole thing that this whole show is about. And that was oh my god, what's his name?
Poreless, right?
Sea snake.
Corliss. Yes,
Yeah.
Sea Snake.
That's some Gandalf shit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Brad, you're up.
All right, well, if I'm gonna do as good a Damon impression as Allie did, I gotta get my hand on my hip, lean back apparently, and say, "Dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did."
Who is that?
Daemon Targaryen. He's like one of the main characters.
Ever heard of him?
He is my husband, so
Kelsey Lee.
Oh my god, I spit water everywhere.
And see, and folks, this is just more of a reason to be watching this on YouTube as opposed to listening to it on podcasting platforms. It just brings a whole new element when you can see our stupid faces doing these things.
Especially Brad looks like he fucking threw out his hip. He was like,
Kelsey, what is your favorite line?
oh shit. How do I follow up that performance? I don't know. All right. I'd rather feed my sons to my dragons than have him serve your usurper bastard king. That's not the right
You
thing.
didn't even
but-
look up the actual line. Kelsey,
Okay,
goddamn
well, drunken usurper cunt of a king.
I was gonna say you left out the most important part.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't realize that this was gonna be a fucking Shakespeare class. Okay,
Why did you deliver that in the accent of the sex worker that used to be with Damon?
That was absolutely
no.
I don't
Come on.
sound like this.
Usurper cunt of a
Okay.
king.
I was waiting for this impression.
All right,
I think we're
Travis.
doing very well here.
We are.
Thanks,
We are.
John.
Hey, people! Somebody needs to hire us to do whatever. I don't know. Travis,
Definitely did your
Mine.
stand up.
From Viserys, he said, called his dream the Song of Ice and Fire. That's mine. I thought that was awesome. There's a throwback to the Game of Thrones, full circle, a Song of Ice and Fire, the way he linked the two shows. And, Brad's point earlier about George R. R. Martin, even though Noah hates his guts, writing all this stuff so well thought out from the beginning. I thought that was awesome. So that was my favorite quote.
Okay.
Love it.
Take this home, Noah.
There are a few other ones that were pretty good. You guys covered most of them though, so that's good work. All right. It's exhausting, isn't it? Hiding beneath the cloak of your own righteousness, but now they see you as you are. That was my favorite one.
Severus Snape.
I don't know what that accent was. I don't know what that accent was. I was trying to be like a female, but I don't know what that was. I apologize, everybody.
Oh, it was good. It was good.
It wasn't female. Yeah.
Some other runner-ups. How sweetly the fox speaks when it's being cornered by the hounds. That was Allison when talking to Viserys about Rhaenyra. And then you desire not to be free, but to make a window in the wall of your prison.
I was going to say that.
That was a very good one as well.
Oh,
from
yeah,
Rhaenys
that was really
talking about-
good.
That was, when Rhaenys is like, Allison, go fuck yourself.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
So good. So, well, wrapping it up, we had a lot of good characters that we liked, a lot of bad characters that we hated. Who do you wish we got a little bit more time with? Who was a great character that you just wish we saw a little bit more this season? Allie G raising her hand.
Bug Girl, 100%. Like, he was out here dropping the realest knowledge, like 100%.
Every time she
I
spoke,
like her.
she was like Yoda. Like every time she spoke, you were like, yo, I'm about to get some knowledge right now.
But no one took her seriously because she's a weirdo.
Idiots.
Oh, that's a good one.
What are some other
Mine
ones?
was
Yara?
actually Lena, because we barely saw anything of her, but she seemed like a total badass. I mean, she had the biggest, baddest dragon, and like we have no idea really how she got that unless I missed that somewhere.
No, all she ever said was, "I didn't have a dragon until I was much older."
Well, so apparently
Yeah,
they did shoot. They shot a scene where she was able to bond with Vagar, and they cut it. It was just a deleted scene. I don't know why.
that would have been cool,
Yeah.
but I don't know. She seemed like a really cool chick. I would have loved to like see more of her, and like even her and Damon's relationship. We saw just like so little of it.
All
I
right.
agree with that. I agree with that, Kate. And to your point about deleted scenes, I think there was a lot of deleted scenes that would have helped us build a lot more character, especially behind Damon and his relationship with his family and his daughters. And just some other scenes that we saw on Twitter that were supposed to happen, or things that changed from the books and things like that. So there wasn't a particular character. Maybe I wish that the season was elongated, like Brad alluded to earlier, of not having so many time jumps or learning more about what's happening in those time jumps. But I think some of those deleted scenes would have helped a lot.
Travis, did you have crab feeder?
No, crab feeder got a one-time mention from me.
Okay,
Just like the show.
Then you guys, I just didn't want, because I had him and I was like, oh, what you said earlier, I was like, oh, that's gonna be Travis's then. Okay. Who'd you have?
I'll say mine real quick. Yeah, and so mine is Corlys Valerian. I think he's the only one that did anything in the show. You know, the whole show is scheming and planning, and I think season 2, you know, shit's gonna hit the fan. But really, season 1 was scheming and planning. Corlys was just off at war, like the whole episode. He was off like 4 or 5 years, just off battling people. So let's see more of that. Let's see more what he's doing in the Stepstones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think House Valerian was my entire wish I would have seen more of, between between Damon's daughters and between Lena and all of them. I was really interested in their dynamic. I really liked the relationship with Rhaenyra and Corlys in general. But yeah, Corlys was that dude. So I wish we would have seen more. Plus, I guess, you know, maybe Carl with a Q. What is it about this guy that makes Laenor give it all up? You know what I mean? Give everything up for the
Something's being given up.
Yep. Well, question for you all. And this is a big one, and I feel like I know the answers of some of you, but I want you to keep into context. Like, we're just talking about season 1s. And my question is, which show had a better season 1, House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones? Now, Game of Thrones, it started with the opening scene with the White Walkers at the wall. We saw King Robert and his family visit Winterfell after the death of Jon Arryn. Ned and the girls went to King's Landing, Jon Snow at the Night's Watch. Robert died, and it all kind of culminated with the beheading of Ned Stark. Now, this one, we've talked about everything we've talked about here. You know, starts with the Great Council and the friendship between Rhaenyra and Alicent. All the time jumps, 20 years this show spanned. This one season spanned 20 years. Daemon versus the Crab Feeder, Vagar, all that stuff, and it culminated in the war really starting with Vagar and Aemond killing Luke. So not thinking about the full body of work of which show fully is better, but just season 1. Travis, let's start with you. Which one do you think is better, Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon's first seasons?
I don't want to bash on House of the Dragon. I enjoyed the show. I am very much looking forward to season 2. I am glad I watched, but it doesn't come close in my mind to Game of Thrones season 1. Season 1 of Game of Thrones, the whole season was great, but the Ned Stark moment was legitimate jaw dropper. I don't know the actor's name, but he was the only A-list actor in the show. The rest were mostly unknowns, and I'm sure there's a few that people would say were not totally unknown. Whatever, I didn't know any of them. So he's the only guy I recognized. For him to die, for him to be killed in season 1 was completely unexpected for me. And that led me, I mean, the second that season 1 ended, I read all the books, you know, up until, as you know, as you mentioned, only 6. We're not all the way there yet. So I read all the books immediately because I was so into it. So I did like House of the Dragon, but yeah, it's not close. It's Game of Thrones.
Kelsey?
Oh, absolutely. I think Travis hit the nail on the head. House of the Dragon was great. It was fine. And Ali said this earlier too, that it was entertaining and I want to keep watching. I'm sad that there's going to be 2 years before we have House of the Dragon back, but it's just, there's no comparison. I mean, it's just Game of Thrones, the whole body of work, yes, but like season 1 of Game of Thrones changed the way that TV is done. You see all these shows trying to emulate that a lot with like a lot of really surprise things, maybe killing off main characters and things like that. But it absolutely changed the course of television history. And just so, like you said, Noah, you can go back and watch it 10, 15, 20 times, however many times you want, and you're always going to notice something new, and it's always going to tie into something else later, that in such a smart and beautiful way. So I just think that you missed out with House of the Dragon. So it's my vote, Game of Thrones.
Brad?
I mean, I love House of the Dragon. Like, I really, really did. Like, I thought it's a great show. Like, I'm enjoying it. Like, I can't believe, same as Kelsey said, I can't believe I have to wait 2 years. So this is not a knock on it, and I really tried all day to put myself in that state of mind. Okay, what is really better? Like, I went and watched like recaps to season 1 and like I don't think it's close. I was like, I think it's gonna be a little closer than like I'm thinking. But like watching what I did today of like season 1 of Game of Thrones, I'm like, it's not close. Like so much, and it's crazy. It's like, I forget who said it earlier. Someone was like, "Oh no, you were talking about like people had questions about Game of Thrones season 1." Like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on in that show, and I loved it. Like, that is crazy. Like, I was like rewatching the season 1 recap today. I was like, I had no idea who that person was. Like 7 episodes in, and like that ended up being this, or like, you hadn't met Stannis yet. You just hear him like talked about. I'm like, this is so good. I'm like, versus House of the Dragon, like I knew everything. So maybe that was part of it too. There was no like mystery of like, what is this place they're mentioning? Like, why is this important? Like, it was very spot on. Well, this is why this is important. Like, you kind of knew everything.
Okay, Kate.
You guys pretty much just like took the words out of my mouth, really. I mean, I totally agree. I loved House of the Dragon. I thought it was great, but Game of Thrones season 1 beats it for me, for sure. Kind of like you said, Kelsey, like it was so like revolutionary at the time. Like, there's a brother and sister having sex and killing kids, like that was not on TV like at all. And then kind of like Travis said, like killing off the main character, and they like did all their advertising around Sean Bean because he was the big actor. So to kill him off was like completely unexpected. And now it's like more expected in TV shows, especially like House of the Dragon. Like, we are more expecting like these big crazy moments, these big crazy deaths. I see why they had to do the time jumps in House of the Dragon to like get to the story, because it's over so many years. But I liked that there wasn't that in Game of Thrones. It was so much character building in just the first season, and you don't really do a lot of time jumps. You're just following these characters like as they develop.
Yep. You guys know I like to stir the pot. I really wanted to head in here tonight and argue House of the Dragon. I was like almost trying to convince myself, but then I watched that Game of Thrones season recap and was like reliving those moments, and I was like, man, I can't do it.
Ali?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has said it all at this point. Similar to Travis, yeah, like I remember watching the first season and then going and reading the books, and I hate reading, but I was just so into it. And like, honestly, like Game of Thrones season 1 is a just perfect season of television. Everything is perfect. Like, I'm very big into the character development, and so I love that. And it's like, I feel like eventually we'll be able to go down the road with House of the Dragon, I hope, and in season like 4 be like, oh, that throwback to season 1 or things like that. But with Game of Thrones, like, it was within season 1. You'd get to episode 9 and be like, oh, throwback to episode 2 of season 1 that you just like, it was just so good. And yeah, obviously killing off Ned Stark, like no one saw it coming, no inkling, no hint, no nothing. It revolutionized television. Like,
Oh, sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
I'm done.
Was that the last? Ned Stark was the
No.
end of season.
No.
No,
a lot happened after that. Like Rob
Okay.
finds out, like his whole family. John wants to leave and go back.
It
But I just
ends with Rob getting crowned king in the north.
No, Danny.
Okay.
Danny of the Dragons.
Yes, and then Danny, and then the dragons are
I
born.
literally just got chills. Like,
Okay, yeah, like that's it. That's insane. But to your point, I remember all of us. I think that episode ended with him like it going to black, and
Yeah.
everyone being like, "No,
Yes.
no
Yeah.
way! Someone came in,
Correct.
like Sean Arrow, like someone saved him, or that it was Joffrey fucking around." Like even that, it was so unbelievable. Even in that moment, like it just it's giving me chills again. Like, and the fact that it ends with Danny walking out of fucking fire with dragons. That's insane. You didn't even
And
mention that
titties.
in your recap. And some
More titties in
and
that
some,
season.
and
So
some
many
immaculate.
Yeah. I think you guys said it, and really, Brad, just like you, I want to go against the grain and say House of the Dragon season 1 was better. I think there's a lot of things that go against House of the Dragon when we're having this argument. And number one, like you all have said, like this season 1 of Game of Thrones, particularly how it ended, Ned Stark getting killed, it transcended how stories are told and how TV is made and the expectations of the viewers that watch and consume this content. So now everybody is waiting for that next big thing, is anticipating that next big thing, and just nothing will ever be as shocking as that was in the moment. And so to an extent, House of the Dragon is a victim of the success that the previous story already had. So I think there's that, and I do feel strongly about that. I also think that with the time jumps, it makes it really difficult. And I think they really did the best that they could do with the way that they chose to tell that story. But it also made it a little bit jarring how that happened multiple times. Certain characters were portrayed by 3 different actors. Like it makes it very difficult, and it makes it seem a little jumbled. So I think that's hard as well. And, we talked about it multiple times where I think that now that Viserys is dead, now that the dance with the dragons has begun, I don't anticipate any more time jumps at all. And now they'll just be telling more of a cohesive story. And so I'm wondering if like this whole season kind of was a prologue to the real story, which basically will kick off starting with season 2. And so that's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping all these problems that maybe we saw with season 1, it was just isolated to this season because they had to set it up through many, many years and many generations in order to tell the story they want to tell.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, yeah, part of me wishes season 1 could have been 2 seasons just to get more backstory, but I don't know if fans would have been patient enough with that.
Yeah.
Like you said, like we kind of got spoiled by Game of Thrones. Like, I don't know if we're after knowing where Game of Thrones takes us and we do have those like crazy moments, I don't know if House of the Dragon had that much time to play with.
Yeah, so plus like, they know what fans are expecting based on Game of Thrones. So they have to give fans what they want, but then also not do it the same way and make it formulaic and maybe go away from episode 9 having that crazy thing happening because that's what everyone's expecting. So, but at the same time, not being too different where then fans are like, what the hell is it? So it's a very tough job that they took on. And I think that overall they did a very, very good job despite the few flaws that we've all talked about. But moving on to season 2, I know I'm very excited, and I'm very excited for season 2. I think that one thing definitely needs to happen. We need a new theme song. Like straight up, we need a new theme song. I liked the nostalgia of hearing the original one, and I just love that song so much, but it doesn't fit with this show to me. I think we need a new theme song for sure. And I like the idea of the title sequence that we detailed, and I want to say episode 2 of our podcast, of the bloodline and seeing the entire blood kind of spilling from, of the entire family. But no one knew what those sigils are. No one knows who represents. And really a cool thing about Game of Thrones was that you'd watch it every single episode and be like, oh, we're going to this kingdom now. We're going to see this time. Like, that's going to be cool. We haven't seen it yet. And everyone paid attention to that and knew exactly what that was. I can tell you for a fact, because I paid attention to this, the opening credits was updated every time for this when we got new characters, but no one needed to pay attention to it because no one knew what it meant and it didn't matter. So it would have just been such a cool thing if they changed the whole opening credits to be a map again, just like Game of Thrones was, but of that painted table on Dragonstone with the embers under it. It looked so cool last episode, and kind of having like that map at Dragonstone and having like going around to the different places. So that would be the similarity, but with a different song. That's my soapbox. Thank you for listening to me. But why don't you all go on? Tell me some of the things that you're the most excited for and to see in season 2.
Betrayal.
I don't even know what to expect, but I mean, Rhaenyra is pissed, and I'm excited to see her like get mad and break some shit, hopefully.
Yeah, I will say,
tells Alicent, like, yo, I had time to think about when you wanted to take my son's eye out to kind of even things out. I'll let you take my other kid's eye out, but I'm gonna feed one of your other kids my dragon, and then we'll all call it even.
I will say, I think I talked about this last episode, I was a little disappointed in grown Rhaenyra. I think she's a little complacent. I know that she's like trying to be peaceful and things like that, but I think a lot of the decisions that she makes or the way that she thinks doesn't make sense for the gravity of the situation and for all the things that keep happening one after another, that it's clear that the Greens want nothing to do with peace and that they're going to do this shit, which ends up happening. And then even after it happening, like she just seems kind of like, well, I'll think about it. I'll talk to you in the morrow. So I'm really hoping that the dragon comes out. And then obviously you guys referenced this too earlier, Daemon and Aemond, like, I want Aemond to get got so bad. And if Daemon dies, I'm going to be sad.
I'll quit watching.
Am I the only one of Aemond versus Daemon? Am I the only one that's team Aemond?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, Brad. I'm not fully team Daemon. I can't say I'm team Aemond here, though. I'm torn, but I'm not fully team Daemon for sure.
Oh, I thought it'd be like a little bit more like, I knew the majority of people were going to be like, yeah, I'm all Aemond all the way.
Wow.
I think you are just hedging your bets right now because you're like, oh, there's no way that Rhaenyra and Daemon both stay alive. Like,
oh no. I just like Aemond better. I like Aemond better and would rather see him longer.
Yeah, Brad, can you show us Aemond's face right now, please?
Which eye is it?
Like permanent blue steel, like in the battle of the stupid faces, which I hope that next episode is dubbed informally, like
the battle of the
Aemond
stupid faces.
And I think Matt Smith's face is dumb, believe me.
Beady eyes versus one eye.
Like blue steel one eye, like that dude's mouth just, oh my god, I can't with him.
And that his chin literally goes all the way from Westeros to Dragonstone. Like they should have known that it was him just based on his chin being in the sky.
That shit crosses the narrow sea.
that was the bridge, or like was it like Giant's Causeway that going under the sea.
Well, just opening up to anybody. Anything we're excited for season 2, or maybe any predictions that you all have for season 2.
I'm excited to see Rhaenyra and Daemon. They're not gonna, I don't know, are they gonna stay on the same team the entire time on this fight? I mean, there's definitely some conflict between the two of them, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one prediction. I think Aemond is the father of Aegon and Bug-Girl's kids. And I think that's going to come out in season 2 and he's going to flip sides. I think it's going to be that thing that no one would think would ever happen. Like the show always gives us what is the least likely thing that can happen. And I think it's Aemond ultimately being with Team Black.
So Aemond, you think Aemond, Bug-Girl cheated on Aegon with Aemond.
I think those are Aemond's kids. And I think that family is good. Like Aegon's going to find out and Aemond's going to take that family to Dragonstone. And he knows that's the only place that they'll be safe. And they'll be like, yo, fuck this guy. Like, I think that's going to be the conflict is like, fuck him. He killed Luke and blah, blah, blah. But then like the strategic side of them is going to be like, yo, but we also now get the biggest dragon on our side. And I think that's going to create more conflict within Team Black of like, yo, what's more important? Like that you let your emotions control you, or you do what like strategically is going to win you this war.
But if that happens, then Team Green has absolutely no chance. The only thing that is helping them is that they have Vhagar. Like they have nothing else.
Game of Thrones always does a good job of like, you think that like, yo, who's fucking with Daenerys? Like she got 3 dragons, and then all of a sudden I've got a scorpion that'll kill dragons, and you wheel that and you're like, oh yeah,
Exactly.
you got that.
Okay, well that was some bullshit. That
it was some bullshit. Well, anybody have anything else? All right.
My only prediction real quick is that neither Rhaenyra or Aegon win. Both of them, I don't know what'll happen. One will die, both will die, but someone else will win the Game of Thrones.
Well, I mean, we know that this is basically the destruction of the whole family. So I'd say that that's probably correct, right? Because if one side just won and then they continued on, like, then we probably would be fine. So I like that prediction for sure.
Yeah,
I've said
we don't know that they die.
What was that, Brad?
We don't know that they all die.
No, that's true. That's true.
well, no, they don't, because obviously Daenerys, her mom ends up escaping somewhere else, and so someone stays alive. They're just in the shadows, and they're just trying to like be like under the wraps. But I still think, because I can't get over why they would make the White Worm so prominent and in such a stupid way for so many times. I think there's something with her, and it's going to somehow lead to like Littlefinger or something. I still think she has like some connection, because didn't he say his mom was a whore and like all this stuff? So I don't know. I don't know why I cannot get that out of my head. I just can't. But
she wouldn't be his mom, because it's like 200 years earlier.
Yeah.
But
well, maybe not mom. I don't know. Just I feel like I don't know why I can't get it out of my head, but clearly there's something with her and the stupid kid pit or whatever. So
all right. Well, as always, love talking about the stuff with you guys. It's been really awesome recapping. This is now 11 episodes that we did together for season 1 of House of the Dragon, and it was just really awesome talking about it and laughing about it with all of you guys. And don't worry, for all of you people listening, just because House of the Dragon's over, Superhero Faces and the Geek and You Shall Find podcast rolls on. We'll have a lot of content that you like to hear about, that like to talk about, coming up for you, with the next one being about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. We're all checking it out on opening night, so you all will be the first to hear our thoughts on that. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And to all of our subscribers that speak Dothraki, for nas check. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.